welcome everyone to this session. I'm sure we're all very excited to have Jeffrey Archer with us. Quickly introduce myself. My name is Ryan Chadha and I am from Tinkerbola. So at Tinkerbola, we are trying to bring interactive experiences together where children can connect with authors. This is our fourth session in the In Conversation series, and we're all really excited to hear from one of my heroes. Certainly, I've read loads of his books. So before we start, I'd like to hand over to Mr. Mohit Batra, who is from Rajat Book Corner. Mohit, over to you.
Thank you, Ryan. Hi, everyone. I'm Mohit. I'm a bookseller. I was born in this bookshop. I'm a third generation bookseller. My father, my grandfather have all been booksellers. And I've been sitting here reading a lot of books. And someday magic happens. One of the authors I have read many a times, my father has read, has agreed to come and talk with us today. It's such a delightful feeling when you read a book and you connect with the content, but it's more delightful when you get to speak to the content creator. I welcome you all to this magical journey. And don't forget to visit your libraries, visit your bookshops on a regular basis. You never know which author you'll come across there. All right, over to you, children.
All right. So first up, we have Siddhant, who's going to introduce Jeffrey to everyone. Go for it, Siddhant.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to this session. I would like to introduce our guest, Jeffrey Archer, to you all. Jeffrey Archer is one of the most successful authors in the last 50 years. His books, plays, and short stories have been published in 97 countries and more than 33 languages. Worldwide, his writing has been sold in many formats more than 275 million times. He has been a number one author in fiction a whopping 19 times, a number one author in short stories 4 times, and a best selling author once for non fiction. This makes him the only person to have been a best selling author in all three categories. Apart from being an author, he's also been an athlete, captaining Oxford University athletics in his youth, a member of Parliament in the UK, an active philanthropist and auctioneer, helping raise many millions of pounds for charity. We feel very privileged to have Sir with us. Thank you so much for joining us.
Well, thank you very much indeed. How very nice to see you. What an improvement you are on those three boring old men over there. So, shall we go with the session? Shall we start the session?
Yep. I think we can begin. Should we begin with the questions?
And thank you. Before you speak, we don't need much more of you, Ryan. We're tired of you already. We thank that young man for that brilliant introduction and congratulate him on the hard work he must have done to do that. Thank you very much indeed. Really appreciate it. Thank you. Now back to the boring old man.
All right, children. So let's start with the questions. Who wants to go first? All right, Ada, why don't you go?
Can you tell me one of your books which you have written?
Well, the most famous one in India is called Cain and Abel. And that's been read by probably 50 million Indians. But I've recently done, how old are you?
I'm 7. I'm going to turn 8 next year.
Whoa! Wow. Well, I've recently written 3 children's books for 6-year-olds. So you should be beyond them, really. By nearly 8, you should be beyond them. But you might try one of those before you try my grown-up books.
That's great. Well, totally, which book is new for you? Like, which book you're going to write new?
Which book? What? Sorry, I'm so sorry. Which book?
Meaning, like any new book you have decided to write?
I'm writing at the moment. Even today, I was up at 6 o'clock in the morning writing today, and I'm writing a book about a detective called William Warwick, and he's in the Metropolitan Police Force in London, and he's studying at the moment a stolen picture. He's after a Rembrandt. Have you heard of Rembrandt?
No.
No. Rembrandt was a great Dutch painter, and he's very, very important and very valuable, and one of his paintings has been stolen, and my detective is chasing after it.
I have no more questions, so I had only those 2 questions.
Thank you very much indeed. Have a wonderful Christmas.
Great. I think Anya Bhattacharya has got a question. Anya, do you want to go ahead and ask your question?
Yeah.
Hello.
Hello. Actually, how does a writer actually just so easily with a pen and a paper just connect so many words, and then the reader starts visualizing things in his or her mind?
Gosh, can you tell me, please?
So what she said is, how does a writer connect pen to paper and convey all of those thoughts that are in their mind onto a sheet of paper?
Very good question. Very good question. Well, I think actually that takes a lot of experience and many years of writing. But at your age, there's still a chance that you could sit down and write a little story, say a page, say 200 or 300 words, a little story about perhaps your mum or your dad or your home or one of your friends. You could do that now. I didn't start writing until quite late in life. It wasn't what I wanted to start life doing. So I came quite late, but I've now been doing it for over 40 years. But I think, yes, if I was your age, I would say, see if you can write something in one page, a little story in one page about mum, dad, your home, your life, whatever it is, and put that down on paper. That would be a real challenge for you.
Thank you. Next up, Adarsh Murthy, do you want to ask your question?
What are the tips you might give to young and aspiring authors?
My translator better come back.
Guys, he said, what are the tips you would give to young and aspiring writers?
Well, I think you'd have to realize that it's very hard work. But I would advise you at your age to do a lot of reading. Read brilliant authors, read brilliant writers, and learn from them. And the ones that inspire you, well, that will help you think about what you're going to write.
Okay. Govind Nair, do you want to come on and ask your question?
So my question is, like, my grandmother, my mom, my dad, and my aunt, all of them are hooked to your books. So my question is, how do you keep the old generations and the new generations hooked, like all of them together?
How do I keep the older people? What was
And
the
the new
last? And the young people?
hooked to your books.
Oh, there you are. Hello.
Hello.
So your father, your grandfather, and your mother all love my books.
Yeah.
And you want to know, how do I keep them? Do you know? Do you know? I don't know. It's a God-given gift. Now, I can't play the piano. I can't sing a song. I can't play the violin. I'm not a ballet dancer. I'm a storyteller. I like telling stories. So I got lucky. So it's a God-given gift. And I'm delighted that your mother and your father and your grandmother and grandfather feel the same way. I'm honored and delighted. Please pass my best wishes back to them. And how old are you?
13.
Oh, I think you're ready for not a penny more, not a penny less. I think
I
you're
think
ready.
my dad's read that. Dad and mom
I'm
read
not
that.
interested in your dad. I'm talking to you. I want you to read it. That is old and boring. I want you to read it.
I will.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
That was a great answer. Thank you. Kashya, do you want to go next? Kashya, can you unmute yourself, please?
Yes, sir. So where did you get your passion to start writing from?
Well, I'm not at a young age like you. I mean, are you thinking about writing already?
I like writing stories.
Ah, and how old are you?
11.
Well, that's wonderful. You like writing stories already. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Now, I think I always liked telling stories when I was young, but I wasn't clever enough like you to write stories when I was only 11. So you must keep writing your stories and keep reading because go to your marvelous bookshop that you've got there and listen carefully to the man in the bookshop because he's read more books than any of us. So he'll be able to tell you which books to read so that you can advance your knowledge. But you're very lucky to be reading at the age, to be writing at the age of 11. I think that's remarkable. And before I go, can I say how much I like your curtains? What pretty
Thank you.
curtains you've got back there. Did you choose those?
Yeah.
I love them. Yes, very nice. Keep reading.
Okay. Thank you.
Great. Mohit Ashwani has a question on improving writing skills. Mohit, do you want to unmute and ask your question?
Hello, sir.
Hello. How old are you?
13.
13. You going to open the batting for India?
No, I don't want to.
No.
I'm not a fan of cricket.
Oh, what a funny, strange Indian you are.
Like I was when I was younger, but now I prefer football more.
You've grown out of it already. Good heavens. Good heavens. So what's your question?
Sir, like when do you actually write?
That's a good question. I get up at 5:30 in the morning and I write from 6 until 8. And then I rest for 2 hours and I write from 10 until 12. And then I rest for 2 hours and I write from 2 until 4. And then I rest for 2 hours and I write 6 until 8. I'm in bed about 9:30, 10 o'clock, and then I'm up again the next morning to start the next 6 o'clock session. So I do 4 sessions a day, each of 2 hours. And probably for the first draft of a book, I will do 50 days in a row. So I do about 300 or 400 hours on the first draft. But the draft I hand in that I considered finished is probably takes a year and about 1,000 hours. But at your age, at 13, if you want to write, I would suggest half an hour, maybe 45 minutes, and 2 or 3 pages. But don't rush. Go slowly. Write each word carefully. think about the next sentence while you're writing. Then you can progress as you grow older. You can do more and more, but there's no need at 13 to be rushing. You can take your time because you're at the moment, you're 67 years behind me. So you've got a long way to go.
Great, thank you. We have another question on writing from Nitya Deshpande. Nitya?
Yes, so sir, I've been writing very short stories like of 2 pages or something, and then I sometimes while writing stories I struggle to get ideas. So I wanted to know how you easily get ideas for writing.
Well, the real secret for ideas is to meet a lot of interesting people and to read a lot. You won't get ideas just sitting in that room looking out of the window. You have to go out into the big world and meet people and talk to them. And more important, listen to them. Listen to what they have to say. And then an idea might spark itself from you, from the things you are doing. A little spark will come into your head, and then you should write it down very carefully indeed. A page will be fine. And tell us who you've met, how you met them, what they were doing, where they live, all of those things, and get it on to a piece of paper. And then if you're very lucky, you'll see a story coming out of that.
That's super advice. Yeah, thank you. Another question, very interesting question from Ojal. Ojal, do you want to ask your first question?
Yeah, okay. So I would like to know what is your favorite author? Who is your favorite author and why?
It's quite hard to have one author. I mean, do you have one author at the moment you like more than any other? No, I'm the same. I love storytellers. In your country, I love R.K. Narayan. I think he is one of the greatest storytellers ever, and should have won the Nobel.
What is it that you like in his style? Like, what exactly do you like in his writing?
Sorry?
What exactly do you like in his writing?
What do I like about his writing? He has that great gift of being a good writer and a good storyteller, an amazing combination. And the genius of that you will see in Moguldi Days, when he takes a tax collector in a little village. Now that, when you say it, sounds pretty boring, but he has that wonderful ability to make you want to know more and more about this tax collector and more about the little village he lives in. That is a genuine gift. So he's one of my favorites. How old are you?
Oh, I'm actually 11. In March, I'll turn 12.
Now, do you have a favorite book or a favorite author?
Yes, I have favorite book and favorite author. I like J.K. Rowling and Sudha Murthy.
You like, sorry?
J.K. Rowling and Sudha Murthy.
Oh, yes. Well, at 11, I think you can start to read some quite exciting authors, because you look as if you're a serious reader to me. You look as if you care about your books.
Every night before I go to sleep, I read at least for half an hour or something.
Very good. Well, I wasn't clever enough at your age to look at, but it won't be long before you're looking at Charles Dickens and Jane Austen, who are two of the greatest storytellers that have ever lived. But there's still a lot of good storytellers at your age group. So just keep on reading. But are you going to be a writer?
Well, I do like writing stories.
Good.
But I've been writing a few stories. They're only concepts, not really full-fledged stories. Oh. But yeah, I do a lot of reading. I take some ideas from that. I take some ideas from all that's around me. And I turn that into a story.
Well, keep going, I would say. There's no hurry. No hurry. You're going to live for another 80 years. There's no hurry. So keep reading.
Do you mind if I ask you another question?
Yes, of course.
So what is your favorite type of story to write? Like you were talking about a detective story. Like do you like writing thrillers or comedy or children's stories? What's your favorite?
Well, it doesn't matter. I like sagas. I like stories about human beings and things that go right in their lives and things that go wrong in their lives, which is why I love Dickens. And a good long story is what I look to. I quite like thrillers and I quite like detective novels, but they should be passing fun. They should, you just enjoy those. But there must come a point when you put them aside and you try a truly great and serious author. And you've got a lot of those in India. India has produced some of the finest writers in the world, and we're very privileged to have them. So you can look forward to, what a lucky person you are, because you can look forward to reading for the rest of your life.
Yes. Okay, so I have one last question. What was the first story you ever wrote?
First what book I ever wrote?
Not book, like concept story, a draft, as you were saying.
The first time?
Yes.
Well, I didn't, hold your breath. I didn't start writing until I was, hold your breath, 34 years old. A boring old man already, because I wanted to be a politician. I'd sat in the House of Commons in England, and I'd been a member of Parliament. And when I came out, I wrote my first book, Not a Penny More, Not a Penny Less. And you're pretty well old enough to read that. And that was my first book. And I was at that time 34, 35 years old. So I often think you can start writing too young. It might be get some ideas, get some experience, get some life. So at this point, I would say read, and good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great. So on your first book, actually, Pratiksha has a very good question. Pratiksha, can you unmute yourself and...
Yeah. So my question was, what made you write your first book, Not a Penny More, Not a Penny Less?
Well, I used to be a member of Parliament, and I made a fool of myself. You know what a fool is? I was stupid. So listen carefully. I took all the money I had and I put it into one thing, which lost. And I lost everything overnight. And I had no money at all. I was in debt. So I had to go and get a job. And I couldn't get a job. So I sat down and wrote what had happened to me. I wrote my own experience about how my money had been stolen and how 4 young men got together who'd had all their money stolen too, to steal it back. Not a penny more, not a penny less. They weren't allowed to take 1 penny more than had been stolen from them, but they were trying to get their own money back. So sometimes a first book is very autobiographical. And the word autobiographical means it's about you. So if you sat down to write your first book, there'd be a lot of you in that first book. There'd be a lot about your mum and your dad and your friends and your school and the people you met. And they will get into the book. Oh, I've lost her. I've lost the lady. Oh, there she is. So that's how I started my first book.
Thank you.
No, thank you.
Harshni, do you want to go next?
Yes. So, like you just talked about the book One Penny More, Not a Penny More, Not a Penny Less. That like depicted a real life situation you face. But are other books also like that, or do you like use fantasy for your books, or do you like use like your real life situations?
Yes, many people's first book is an experience they've had. So, and that's not at all uncommon. So, if I've read a book recently about a young doctor being in a hospital, and he was writing about what it was like to be a young doctor in a hospital, because that's where he'd got his experience. And when he saw the patients and he saw everyone involved, there was a wonderful story there, and he wrote it. So yes, I think first books are usually about the person who's writing them, though in truth, even if you go on writing, you'll always get your friends in there without realizing it. Sometimes you put people you know, you put relations, they get in because you know them. So if you know they're tall and lazy, you'll have a character who's tall and lazy. If you know they're beautiful and rich, you'll have a character who's beautiful and rich. If they're clever and kind, you'll have a character who's clever and kind. And you'll base it on that person that you have met. So you can draw their face with words, you can draw them with words, you can talk like them, the things they say, and then the reader will say, wow, they've really met that person.
Okay, I understand.
Cool, thank you. Purvi, can you ask your question on
What's your process of writing?
What's the process?
Yeah.
Well, everybody does it differently. Now, someone of your age, where are you? I can't see you. Where are you? There you are. Now, at your age, because you're very clever, you use all the modern technology, don't you? You know about iPhones and you know about Twitter and you know about Facebook and you know. I didn't when I was a child. I didn't even when I was 34. So I write with a pen, a little felt tip pen, and I write on lined paper because I still handwrite everything. I don't know how to turn on a machine. This machine don't laugh at me. I'm terribly old. This machine you're looking at was turned on by my personal assistant, Alison. She turned it on. And when you all go away, she'll turn it off. And when I go back to write, there I will be with my pen, going across the paper, word for word. And you'll be surprised, because I can see one of you grinning and laughing at me. You'll be surprised how many authors still write with a pen. They don't type or they don't use a machine. They still handwrite. So the answer to your question is I use a pen and paper. Now, when the first draft is finished, I give it to Alison and she types it up triple spaced so that if I want to add anything, there's a lot of room for me to put new words in. And I do that, hold your breath, I do that 14 times before I let anybody read it. Yes, I can see you're opening your mouth 14 times. There's no room for lazy people if you want to be a writer. And that's how I do it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's such a great answer. Puri, you had another question on the process. Do you want to ask that as well?
Actually, that's what I asked him.
Okay.
Yes, quite right.
Okay.
What pathetic, Ryan, you're pathetic. She's already brighter than you. Just
Sure,
get
that
back
she
in.
is.
She's,
That she is.
she's already brighter than you.
That she is. So actually, another question that I have here was, what is the process to go from being a casual writer to a published author?
Well, in real truth, every author is an amateur. Every author, there's no, you don't start out a life career leaving university, or very, very, very few people do, saying I'm going to be an author. Not least because most authors, 90%, don't get published. And of the ones that do get into the bookshops, only 10% are read by enough people to make a living. So you go from being a worthy, ambitious amateur to being a professional almost by mistake. It just sort of happens. You write your book. If nobody wants your book, you remain a happy amateur. If you finish your book and it gets published and real people buy it, that's when I suppose you stop being an amateur and start being a professional.
Cool. Thank you. Adya Jami, do you want to go next? Go.
When do you get time to read books?
That's a jolly good question. When do I get time to read? I've a tendency to read in the evening. I've a tendency when I've finished my work, or when it's the end of the day, say 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock in the evening, I like to read for an hour. Now, I'm currently reading the biography of President Obama. How many of you have heard? Put your hand up if you've heard of President. Oh, very good. Very good. Well, he has written a 700-page book about his life before he became the president and while he was the president. And so I'm reading it very slowly indeed, because every page is full of interesting facts. So it's not like a novel where you turn the page quickly, wanting to know what happens next. You have to read very slowly because he's written down everything that happened to him while he was trying to become the president, and then what happened when he became the president. And then sometimes I read a novel. If someone recommends, if someone says, Jeffrey, have you read X? It's wonderful. I get it immediately. Of course, I don't always think it's wonderful because we all have different views. Some of us will like one sort of author and others will like another sort of author. So when you go to your bookshop, when they discover the things you like, they'll be able to guide you to your next person you should read. So the answer to your question is mainly I read in the evening for an hour, couple of hours at most. And I love reading. I'm enjoying the Obama book very much indeed. But as I say, I take recommendations from other people.
Great. Sapna, are you there?
Yeah. Hello.
Yeah.
Good afternoon, sir.
Hello, where are you? Where are you? Where are you?
Yeah.
Can't see you.
Not able to see me?
That's not you. There you are.
Yeah. Okay. So my question was, is there a book which you read recently which you wished you had written?
Yes. Good question. I recently read a book called A Gentleman in Moscow, a novel that came out about a couple of years ago. And what I loved about it was the story was very clever. And I wondered if it was a true story, because sometimes someone picks a true story and turns it into a novel, but it's also beautifully written. And it's the story of a man who knew Lenin, who knew the Russian leader Lenin. But he was an aristocrat. He had a title and money. So when Lenin came to power, in theory, he should have wanted to shoot him, get rid of him. But instead, he couldn't do that because he liked him so much. He puts him in a hotel. And you follow this man's life living in the hotel. And the girl he meets, little girl, young lady, about the same age as your people on the screen, and how that little girl influences his whole life. It's a wonderful story. But I thought at the end, I think this is true, you know, this has happened to somebody and he's found the story, and clever old him because he wrote it beautifully. So that's an example of a book I've read recently. But you're not a schoolgirl.
No.
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 How did you get in on here? You're not allowed in here. You're not part of my special talk to special people. You've crept in without permission. Go away.
Thank you, sir. I'm actually one of the staff.
Ah, lucky children.
Thank you, sir.
Vasundhara, do you want to go next?
Yes. So I want to ask, did you edit your books yourself or did you have an editor?
Sorry, you didn't come on too late. So nice and slowly and tell me again.
So did you have an editor to edit your books or did you do it
I can't hear her.
She's saying, did you have an editor for your books?
An editor?
Yeah.
What a grown-up question. How old are you? Can she hear me?
Yeah, Vasundhara, yeah.
Yeah, so I'm 10 years old now.
How old is she?
10.
10? Yes. I've never heard of an author who doesn't need someone to look at the book and advise them, because you get so involved in writing the book, you sometimes can't see things that an outsider can. So they look at it and advise you. And if they're professionals, really good at their job, they're editors, they look at a book and say, well, I'd like to know more about this character. And I'd like more scenes set in America because you seem to understand America. I'd like more about an Indian village because I like that part about an Indian village. And you have to, sometimes your editor guides you in which parts to cut down and which parts to expand. But it's always good to have someone look at your work and advise you. Now, you have to pick someone who's clever, someone who's read a lot of books, someone who you respect and trust, and someone you hope will be absolutely honest, because there's no use in that person saying, oh, your book's wonderful. Oh, it's amazing. Oh, I couldn't put it down. Because you need someone to tell you the truth. You need someone to guide you through. So yes, I don't know of any authors who don't allow someone they trust to read the book and give an opinion. And if you can find a good editor, you're very lucky.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mridula, do you want to go next?
Yeah. Hi, sir.
Can't see you.
I'm here.
There you are. Hello.
Hi. So
how old are you?
I'm 11.
11. Off you go.
So you've written books for both adults and children. So how do you engage like both age groups?
A good question. But now that's not quite right, actually. So listen carefully. I am a grown-up author. I write for your mum and dad. I don't write for you. But when my children were at school, I wrote a book called Cain and Abel. And they discovered that everybody was reading it all over the world. So they said, Dad, we can't read that. We're only 6. We're only 7. We're only 8. So I had to sit down and write 3 books for them. So I wrote 3 books for my children, and a very clever Indian discovered this and asked if he could read them. And he read them, and he said, will you allow us to publish them in India and pick an artist to do the illustrations? So I said, yes, I'd be delighted. And if you see these books, you will see that the illustrations are wonderful. They're quite magnificent. So my little stories that I wrote for my own 2 sons are here in these 3 books. And you can't get them anywhere else in the world. You can only get them in India because of the very clever Indian who liked them and decided to publish them.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so next up is Harsh there. Harsh, I can't seem to find you on the chat. Well, Harsh has a question. He says, why did you name your characters after your 2 sons?
Well, I think I go back to the point I made to the young lady who was talking to me about where do you start? I think if you're going to write a book for your children, and one son's called William, and one son called James. So I had Willie for Willie and the Square World, and Willie and the Killer Kippy, Willie and the Killer Kipper. I had William for that one. And for the last one, by royal appointment, I used my other son, James, as the inspiration. But James is also Jamie in the first 2 books. He's the younger brother, which rather points to the fact that I was talking about earlier. You write what you know about. So I wrote about my 2 sons having these amazing adventures. Why invent another son? Why invent another name? Why go away? Stick to the people. These 2 wicked little things were living with me, behaving in the way wicked little boys do. So I put it all into the book. By the way, little girls are just as wicked.
Were they happy about that?
Oh, they loved it. Oh, yes, they were delighted because at last they could tell their friends at school. I mean, there was one of my sons once said to me, please stop taking me to school in the morning, Dad. And I said, why? He said, because the other children think you're out of work.
Hannah, do you want to go next?
Hannah, where's Hannah?
Ryan, we have Harsh online. Let him just ask his question. We'll go to Anna next.
Okay.
No. Where's Hannah? Oh, hello. Hello, you'll do fine. Who are you?
Harsh,
Right, what's your question?
where and when do you usually get your ideas for your storybooks?
I missed that, I'm sorry.
Where and when do you usually get your ideas for your storybooks?
Where and when do I get the ideas? Well, I think they come every day. Now, if I had a chapter now about talking to young Indian children, all the ideas I would use are what I've experienced today with these grown-ups introducing the children, and then the children asking their questions. So you get ideas by looking at everything around you in your own life. Now, I'm going to ask you a question. Are you ready for a question? Who painted those pictures on your right? Who painted those? You did.
Me.
You did. Oh, congratulations. Well, maybe you'll be an artist. I'm a writer. Maybe you'll be. I love the tree on the bottom. Very good. The tree on the bottom. Like it. Well done. Well done.
Thank you.
Great. Ahana, do you want to go next? Yeah, can you unmute?
Hello, sir.
Hello.
Sir, I'm Ahana and I'm 11. I'm writing a book right now.
You're
Yeah,
writing a book right now. You're
yeah,
writing a book at the age of 11.
yes.
Wow.
I've written 55 pages till now.
Right. So what is your question?
I wanted to ask you that, like, how many pages should I write? I've written 55 to now. What should be the page limit?
Well, I write, but I'm a boring old man. I write 10 pages a day. But I would have thought at your age, I would have thought 2 pages a day was enough. About 300 words, 400 words. Is that what you're doing? How many are you doing at the moment?
Words. Like, how many have I written in the book? Yes.
Yes, how many pages are you doing?
Per day. Per day, I'm doing about 1.5 page something.
That's perfect. Perfect. Well done. Well done.
Yeah,
And do them.
Yeah, and I also wanted to ask you that have you read Harry Potter by J.K. Rowling?
Yes, of course I have. She is one of the greatest authors in the world, and she is also a great storyteller. So yes, of course I've read Harry Potter, and I'm a great admirer
Yeah.
of
And
J.K. Rowling. Great admirer.
yeah, and I also wanted to ask you, how do you get a book published?
Ah, there's a cruel question. My first book, Not a Penny More, Not a Penny Less, was turned down by 14 publishers. The 15th publisher liked it. So the answer to your question is never give up. Just because 14 publishers didn't like it doesn't mean the public won't like it, because the 15th publisher did like it and he published it. And that was my first book, Not a Penny More, Not a Penny Less, over 40 years ago. So you've got to be, once you've got the first one published, that won't be a problem. So when you have the first one, you have to be very persistent, very determined, never to give up until you get the first one published. So very good luck.
Great. Sri Ram, can you unmute?
Yeah. I had to ask you that I make a lot of crafts here and I get ideas from that to write. And even I like writing. What do you use to get all of these ideas?
Well, I think that's luck, to be honest with you. You can't go to a shop and buy a packet of ideas. They'll be in that head of yours, or they won't be. And if you're lucky, they will be. Won't stop you being a good writer, because if you're well educated and you've read a lot, you can still be a good writer. But to be a good storyteller, that's a gift, and that's luck. And you may have it, and you may not. Now, I always wanted to captain the England cricket team. My problem was simple. I couldn't bat, I couldn't bowl, and I couldn't field. So I was never going to captain the England cricket team. But God was very kind and said, don't worry, you can tell a story. So you must use the gift you have and work on it and make it better every day. Good luck. I'll take 2 more questions and then I must go back to work.
All right. We have Sanvi. Sanvi and then Anvita.
Yes, sir. So hi, my name is Sanvi. I'm 8-year-old. What kind of books did you read when you were my age?
What age are you? You can't ask that question without telling me your age. Otherwise, how do I know?
I'm 8.
8. 8. Well, I read a book called, my first books were, I remember Swallows and Amazons was one of my first books. And then I liked Alice in Wonderland and Through the Looking Glass. And then I moved on to Just William, which was a story about a wicked little boy who had a grown-up sister, and it was his adventures. So Swallows and Amazons, Just William, and Alice in Wonderland.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, Anvita.
Last question. Here we are for the last question.
Hello, sir. My name is Anvita. And I have 2 questions to ask you. My first question is, how do you plot your stories?
How do you mark your stories?
Plot. How do you plot your stories?
Oh, plot them. Well, plot is the secret. It's a very clever question. Very clever question. Because plot is the secret. And my books rely on plot. So when I'm waiting to get up in the morning, that thing above your nose is called your brain. So my brain is already whirling around in the morning saying, where shall I go next? What will I do with my hero and my villain next? So the plotting is going on in the brain all the time. And your second question?
It's pretty funny. My second question is, did you get any trouble with your friends when your friends did not like your books?
Well, it's a very interesting question, that. Very interesting. There's 2 answers to that question. One, you can't expect your friends or relations to automatically like your books, because they may like other authors. Even your mother or your father may like other authors, or your closest friends may like other authors, or they may like you, which would be very lucky. But you mustn't expect them to be natural fans of your books, because that's not sensible. Now, what was the second? You had 2 parts to that question. Do you like your...
And did you get in trouble with your friends if they didn't?
Do I get... No. I only say nice things about my friends. They like to be in the books, and they like to be teased and be in the books. No, so that hasn't been a problem. So I want to end by thanking you all.
Thank you.
And telling you, look at me, poor old gray thing, 80 years old. And there you are, just starting your lives. And you have the most wonderful opportunity. You have the most wonderful chance. Because I have discovered over the years that young Indian boys and young Indian girls if you work hard. And one of the ways you can have that great future is to read and read and read, and then you'll know more than other people. So thank you very much for spending your time this evening with me. That was very, very kind. And I wish all of you The best of luck in the future. Thank you.